All right, we've got a lot to get to. Let's start locally. Scoot had his best game of the season yesterday.
I just tried to play a drop, just FYI, so there's going to be a random one that comes at some point.
So is it just delayed right now?
At some point in this segment.
Okay.
There will be a This Team Blows drop, and maybe it hits at the right time, and it's fit.
Yeah, we're going to have to work some stuff out behind the scenes because my computer's acting a little funky right now.
A little funk over there.
Funky. But Scoot, 19 points, 15 assists. At the Blazers, they lost. That's not a shocking development.
No.
But Scoot's best game? Probably, yes.
I mean, it's in the conversation. Right? In the conversation, he had 8 turnovers as well, and was also a minus 31. So the good with the bad. He's a rookie. But when you see a stat line like having a double-double at halftime, those are cool little things.
Yeah.
It was the first rookie, I think, since Lonzo, whenever the hell he was a rookie, however many years ago that was. That was the last time a rookie had 10 points, 10 assists at halftime of an NBA game. So that was really cool to see. And I do think late in the season he's shown you more flashes. Now his weaknesses are still glaring, and
2 for 10 from 3, sub 50% from the field.
Yeah.
And you mentioned 8 turnovers, not great, but, handling the rock most of the game.
And this is what I think, at least what I can get behind as a fan in a game like that, is this is what I've wanted to see all year. Like 40 minutes, let him run the show all night. You're going to have 8 turnovers. There's going to be bad shooting nights. Like, this is what I think I wanted to see all season long. And I know that's not a reality because you had Ant still on the team and Brogdon was around, and we don't need to get down in those weeds again, but I at least am glad to see late in the season that this is the opportunity that he is being given, because you got to develop in him as quickly as you can, and you got to figure out exactly what you have there sooner rather than later. And so any of these little bright flashes that give you some optimism are good going into the offseason.
Yeah, I put a poll question up on our Twitter account, @Dirt&Sprague. Is this the worst Trailblazers season of your life?
I answered yes.
Okay.
Now, I feel like the only other year that's even and let's also put some context to this. And maybe I'm misquoting you here, but when I read the question, I didn't view it as like heartbreaking, like losing the Kobe Shaq alley-oop, Greg Oden's leg exploding. Like, I didn't view it like that. There's heartbreaking moments that have happened to Blazer fans. Mm-hmm. Those were not the worst seasons of your lifetime. Those might have been the worst moments of your fandom, not the worst season of your lifetime. So that's the way that I read it.
I think part of the problem with the Oden stuff, people, I think, put that in the running because we have a lot of fans, and I don't mean this as a shot. It's just kind of a difference of opinion or thought. I think a lot of fans put that in that category because they tell themselves we would have won a championship. I don't agree with that.
Not 2, not 3,
not
4.
I don't know if we're counting them, but I am always amazed how many fans are like, we were going to win a title. And I'm like, were we?
I mean, nothing's ever guaranteed in life, but at least you felt like there was hope that could potentially come together. And that's why that felt
And
that way.
I agree with. But it's the people who are like, well, we were going to win a title. It's like, I don't know about that. I mean,
it's not easy to win titles in the
NBA.
NBA.
It's not. No, it's not.
So I wanted to clarify that because there was a lot of those responses on Twitter of like, well, what about losing in the conference finals in Game 7? And it's like, well, that
you got to a conference finals. That's not the worst season. I'm
you were
sorry.
2 plays away from going to the NBA finals.
Heartbreaking for sure.
Nonetheless. So I think the only year that even sniffs this year for me as a fan is 05-06. That's the only other one. And that was the year, I mean, we don't need to go over it again, but we all remember it, and it was, guys getting arrested, Jailblazers, nobody relevant was still on the team really at that point.
Ruben, Zach, Travis
Darius
Outlaw,
Miles.
Darius Miles, just the weirdest, awful team. I think Blake and Dixon were running the backcourt.
Oh, God.
We the Maryland guys. I remember seeing Juan Dixon at the car wash right up the road from the Moda Center.
That was my junior year or senior year of high school, and I'll never forget the Blazers did an outreach thing in the community where they sent Blazers to high school football games, and we got Ime Udoka and Darius Miles because we were playing Jefferson that night. Ime Udoka's a Jefferson kid.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, like, warming up for the game, what everybody said. Darius Miles, the field at Cleveland, you can kind of pull in on top of it. There's a little grass hill there. And he pulled in, opened his door of his Hummer or whatever he was driving, and just weed smoke billowed out of it. And this is like a community outrage thing at a high school football game. There's all these little kids waiting for autographs, and he just stumbles out of his Hummer with a bunch of weed smoke. That's the only year to me that's in the category. And the reason I voted for this year over that year was because at least then we were like 4 years removed from having a legitimate shot. Like, that was at least freshly in our rear view mirror. And that year sucked. It was terrible. It was the last time I checked out as a fan. But at least we were like just fresh on the heels of some serious, like, God, we were that close. And I think you had a little optimism of, if we just did it then, we could probably do it again at some point. It might take us a while. But at least that's why I voted for this year. But I think 05-06 is the only year that's even comparable.
Reminds me of when I went to Dare Camp. It was a sports camp in Northeast. And
don't do drugs, man.
Well, the funny thing about that is Rashid was supposed to show up as a guest, and he was 20 minutes late, and you could tell it was awkward. They were like, okay, he'll be here any minute.
Trying to drag it out.
And he came down, and he finally showed up, and he walked in with a big old coat with fur on the hood, gray sweatpants. He was wearing Timbs.
Yeah.
He had his beanie on. And I don't even remember I don't think he said anything of significance. Nobody
waved
listened.
in the background.
And then they basically let us come down from the bleachers and just like bombard him. There was a decent amount of kids at this camp, and nobody separated us. They just let us walk right up to him. And I'll never forget, I was walking up to him. His eyes were barely open, and you heard one kid say, "It smells like a skunk in here." And that was 5th grade.
Dare, man.
Dare. What a great program that was.
It really helped.
Well,
it helped Rashid.
The reason I put it up at that point yesterday was because it was announced that Shaden Sharp is being shut down. Not that this is breaking news, not that this is shocking. I think most people thought he wasn't going to return. I kept hearing that they wanted him to play the last couple games, but they've ruled it out. He's not going to play. They only have 3 games left.
Yeah.
And so I was more just curious because I've had this conversation with people throughout the season of how this feels, and certainly 05-06, I think it's a little worse than this year.
You thought 05-06 was worse than this year?
Yeah, I do. I think this one's definitely worth consideration. I think you can make a legit argument and debate if we're just talking about the basketball, but you mentioned it, 05-06, we had kind of peaked, and we were still running a couple parts of the lingering team that didn't make sense, and we're still dealing with, morons representing the city, and it just, I don't know, it kind of felt like a rudderless ship. And you can certainly make a claim that this year,
I would make that we are a rudderless ship,
and that's again, that's why I think it's worthy of a debate. But I do think 05-06 edges it out, and the only small reason is at least you get to see Shade next year. And we'll see what Scoot's going to be next year when he turns 20, 21, whatever his age is going to be.
I mean, that was the thing about 05-06 was it led directly to the draft of Brandon Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge.
The trade, yes.
And immediately the next year, and that's why Brandon Roy is so revered in this fandom. It's not because of what he necessarily accomplished, but it was what he meant in that time. And we were coming from one of our darkest years in franchise history. He came in and was the light that we needed, and all of a sudden there was hope back in Portland again.
Yeah.
And that's where maybe that ends up being the case with one of these young guys. Maybe it's Shaden, maybe it's Scoot, maybe it's whoever you draft this summer, and all of a sudden you have that glimmer of hope again of like, okay, I start to see the vision. But if you don't have that I think is where my fear still exists, and it's easy in hindsight to say in 05-06 we got Roy the next year, so it wasn't that depressing. We obviously didn't know at the time that we were going to go find him. Shaden Sharp only playing 32 games this year is really depressing.
That's
really
That's
depressing.
a big part of why this could be deemed worst season of all time.
My take on him in the backcourt. He to me, if you want to win with this group, he has to be your best player just for the athleticism, the size, what he possesses, the way he can score. I don't think you can do it with Scoot being your best guy.
I don't think Scoot. I think I'll take this away from his rookie year because I was happy that he had a quote good game.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen enough evidence his first year, and I know how young he is, that would lead me to say that he's going to be the best player of a team that you would consider
a number one
quote,
option
contender.
Yeah.
And I think he could be a really good player.
Sure.
But I've always viewed him more as a Conley than, I don't know, a Curry, a Dame.
Yeah.
You can argue Dame, too, got to a point, but I would argue roster construction was a big problem. But you see my point is I don't think he can be your number one.
And that's where Shaden showed flashes at times this year of being and having that potential. I mean, he averaged 16 a game. He almost doubled his point total from rookie season to his second year. The 3-point percentage was roughly the same. Still not a great number, but it feels like he has the ability and the traits to develop in that category. He at least showed you some flashes of like, man, how differently do we feel at this point in the season if Shaden Sharp doesn't get hurt, continues to play, those numbers tick up slightly, and let's say he's averaging 18, 5, and 4.
Yeah,
as
a lot different.
As a 20-year-old second-year player, right? There's just a different feeling of like, okay, at least there's something there. Like I've said this a million times and I'll say it again. Like in order to be a competent NBA organization, it's really hard to build a title team. You need some collection of the following: a rich owner who's willing to spend every dime that they have, / a president who knows what the hell they're doing, a general manager who's smart and shrewd and makes good deals, good at identifying talent, a coach who can develop young players, knows how to work with stars. And then I think the most important part of a team is you have to have that North Star. You have to have that guy that you can circle and say, we're building around him, and that's going to dictate the direction of our organization. And Portland does not have that. You can argue they don't have any of those things. And Shaden playing this year and being healthy, maybe you would have been able to answer one of those questions. And it's really depressing that we didn't get a chance to see it.
I think long term, when you're talking about the vision and using young guys as a star for guidance, I look at 2 players yesterday on this entire active roster that I think are maybe part of your future.
Ayton and Scoot?
No. I'm outside of Scoot. Obviously.
Outside of Scoot. Okay.
Outside of Scoot. Ayton, no.
No Ayton, huh?
There was noise at the deadline. It makes me wonder if he's long for here. And I don't say that like they're going to trade him this summer. I also won't be surprised if they trade him this summer, and I won't be surprised if he's moved at the deadline next year. No, it'd be Chris Murray and Ryan Rupert.
Oh, you big Murray and Rupert guy.
Well, Rupert's still so young. He looks like he's still kind of growing. And
he's a raw prospect.
Murray's put it together pretty nicely at the back end of the season. Jabari I like, but like being honest about it, it's like, 9th guy, maybe.
He's a 6'7", decent rebounder, but he's not big enough. Not yet. Just tough fit.
Yeah, it's going against him. Everything else is just like not going to be here, not going to be here, not going to be here, not a part of the future.
I had somebody ask me yesterday, "What are your thoughts on Delano Banton? Can I get your Blazer takes on that?" I was like,
Can I get your Blazer take? Like you're ordering from McDonald's. Can I get your Blazer take on that?
What do you think about Banton? Is he
1080 drive-through would be really funny. Like
that'd be a great skit.
We can only give you like a 23-second answer to something. Can I get your take on Delano Banton?
As you're waiting for your fries to warm up. It'll be one moment. He shoots a lot. He's not a part of the future.
He needs more sauce, sometimes a little dry. There you go. Your Blazers. Scoot Henderson, night of his life, 19 and 15.